My name is Sarah Martinez, and 3 months ago, I stood in the gleaming marble halls of Princeton Law School, watching a snobby socialite and her powerful father try to bury my son's future under their elitist assumptions. They thought I was just the help, a nobody from the Bronx unworthy of their prestigious world. But I'm a federal judge who's faced down their kind in courtrooms for decades, and I was about to serve them a lesson they'd never forget. If you've ever been disrespected, judged, or dismissed because of where you come from, you're gonna love this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive into how I turned their arrogance into a masterclass in humility. The Princeton Law School reception hall sparkled under crystal chandeliers, the kind of place that screamed old money and older connections. Catering staff in crisp black uniforms wove through the crowd, balancing trays of delicate hors d'oeuvres, tiny quiches, smoked salmon canapes, and glasses of champagne that probably cost more than their hourly wage. The air smelled faintly of lavender polish and expensive perfume, and the hum of self-important chatter filled the room. I stood quietly in my modest navy suit, a single strand of pearl earrings catching the light. To anyone glancing my way, I was just another face, maybe a staff member who'd wandered out of the kitchen. That's exactly what Catherine Blackwell thought when she saw me. Catherine, the golden daughter of Richard Blackwell, managing partner at one of New York's most prestigious law firms, stood in the center of the chaos like a queen holding court. Her designer dress shimmered, probably worth more than a public defender's monthly salary. She was berating a trembling server, her voice sharp enough to cut glass.
No, no, no.
The Supreme Court justices specifically requested their water at exactly 42 degrees. This is practically room temperature. Her perfectly styled hair swished as she tossed her head, her practiced disdain dripping with the confidence only old money can buy. I watched the server, Maria, clutch her tray, her knuckles whitening. My chest tightened. I'd seen that look before, on the faces of countless people dismissed by those who thought they were untouchable. Is there a problem? I asked, stepping forward, my voice calm but firm. Catherine spun around, her eyes narrowing as she took me in, navy suit, pearl earrings, no designer labels. Who are you? Where's your uniform? Her tone was a mix of confusion and contempt, like she'd caught a mouse in her penthouse. I smiled, letting her words hang in the air. Sarah Martinez, James's mother. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by a sneer she didn't bother to hide.
Oh, yes.
James mentioned you might come early to help. She dragged out the last word, her eyes raking over me, clearly deciding I belonged in the kitchen scrubbing pots. My son, James, was dating Catherine, and her family had been questioning his pedigree since day one. To them, he was a nobody from the Bronx, not worthy of their precious daughter. I tilted my head, unfazed. They did an excellent job directing me to the kitchen, I said, watching her confusion deepen at my lack of embarrassment. Though I expected to be greeting the justices with my son. Before she could respond, Richard Blackwell strode in, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor. His smile was all teeth, the kind that could freeze hell itself. Katie, darling, Justice Williams has arrived. And, oh. He stopped, his eyes landing on me. You must be James's mother. From where was it again? The Bronx Supreme Court, I said helpfully, watching his face twist as he misjudged my words. To him, I was some low-level clerk, maybe a secretary at best. Yes, well, he waved a hand dismissively. Catherine, we've arranged for the help to stay in the kitchen during the main reception. Wouldn't want to overwhelm the justices with too many unfamiliar faces. I bit back a smile, remembering the way Richard's jaw had clenched in my courtroom last month when I handed down a landmark ruling against his firm's client in a massive corruption case. He hadn't recognized me then, either. How thoughtful, I said, my voice steady. Mother. James's voice cut through the tension, clear and strong. My son, handsome in his graduation robes, stood in the doorway, his eyes flashing with barely contained anger. Unlike the Blackwells, James had earned his place at Princeton through sheer grit, not a trust fund. James, darling. Catherine rushed to him, her voice syrupy. I was just helping your mother find her place. James's face darkened. In the kitchen, Kate? We talked about this. It's fine, I said softly, catching his eye. He knew that look, my courtroom face, the one that had silenced liars and corporate sharks alike. I'm quite comfortable here. Richard straightened his tie, his confidence unshaken. Yes, well, given your background, we thought you'd prefer something less formal. Not everyone's equipped to handle conversations with Supreme Court justices. I let the insult slide, my pulse steady. Perhaps we should focus on the reception, I said. I believe I hear Justice Williams discussing the Martinez decision from last month's federal circuit. Right on cue, the distinguished voice of Justice Williams boomed through the kitchen doors. Where is Sarah? I was hoping to congratulate her on that brilliant opinion. Completely revolutionizes our approach to corporate accountability. The air in the room shifted. Richard Blackwell's face froze, his smug smile collapsing like a bad alibi. Catherine's perfectly manicured hand flew to her chest. A young clerk poked his head into the kitchen. Judge Martinez? Justice Williams is asking for you. He wants your input on the corporate fraud guidelines. Judge. Federal Judge Sarah Martinez, I corrected gently, smoothing my suit. Though I do appreciate your concern about my ability to handle conversations with the Supreme Court. I only argue before them every other month or so. Richard turned an interesting shade of gray, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Catherine's composure cracked, her eyes wide with horror. But you said the Bronx Supreme Court, where I started 20 years ago, I said, my voice calm but sharp. Before becoming the youngest federal judge in the Second Circuit. Your firm appears before me quite regularly, Mr. Blackwell, though you seem to send your junior partners more often than not. Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. But you let us think you were the help. I raised an eyebrow. Yes, I did. Consider it a lesson in judgment and the dangers of assumption. I turned toward the door. Now, shall we join the reception? Justice Williams is waiting. As I walked past them, Maria caught my eye and gave a subtle thumbs up. I winked back, already planning to recommend her daughter for our court's internship program. James fell into step beside me, his voice low. You knew this would happen. Sometimes, I said, straightening his robes, people need to learn their lessons in memorable ways. Besides, watching Richard Blackwell realize he's been condescending to the judge hearing his firm's biggest case next week? Priceless. The reception hall was a sea of legal luminaries, judges, partners, and deans, all clinking glasses and trading stories. Justice Williams spotted me immediately. Sarah, brilliant opinion on the Martinez case. Simply brilliant. Tell me, how did you anticipate the corporate structure loophole? I smiled, feeling the Blackwell's stares burning into my back. Actually, Bill, that insight came from my days as a night janitor at the courthouse, putting myself through law school. Sometimes the best understanding of the law comes from seeing its effects on every level of society. The room nodded appreciatively, but behind me, I heard Catherine whisper to her father, Daddy, I think I made a terrible mistake. The next hour was a masterclass in social discomfort. Richard, who'd spent months boasting that his daughter was marrying into new legal royalty, watched helplessly as his colleagues connected the dots. A senior partner from his firm approached, his champagne glass trembling slightly. Judge Martinez, we had no idea you were James's mother. Richard's been unusually modest about the connection. Has he? I said, sipping my drink. How unlike him, especially given his passionate arguments against my ruling in the Winston case last spring. Though I primarily heard those through his junior associates, of course. The partner's face tightened. Everyone in the legal world knew Richard had dumped that case on his subordinates after my preliminary ruling went against him. Catherine, meanwhile, hovered at the edges of conversations, her designer dress no longer a shield. The daughters of other legal dynasties, who'd once followed her lead in snubbing James, now competed for his attention. James, I need to explain, Catherine said, catching his arm as he passed. Explain what, Kate? His voice was quiet but carried the same steel I used from the bench. How you told your friends my mother couldn't afford a proper dress. Or how you suggested I distance myself from my embarrassing background to fit into your world. Catherine flinched, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide her distress. I didn't know. That's worse, James said, his voice low. You didn't know she was a federal judge, so you thought it was okay to treat her like she was beneath you. What does that say about how you view people who actually work in service jobs? Maria passed by with a tray, and Catherine's face flushed as she recognized her. James, please, we can fix this. Fix what? Margaret Blackwell, Catherine's mother, swooped in with the timing of a vulture circling a kill. Catherine, darling, we need to discuss damage control. Do you realize half the judges in this room have heard about your little kitchen incident? I decided it was time to step in, not to save them, but to set up a bigger lesson. Mrs. Blackwell, I said, turning from my conversation with Justice Williams, perhaps we should discuss this somewhere private. The donors' lounge should be empty. They followed me like condemned prisoners. In the plush lounge, Margaret went on the offensive. Judge Martinez, surely we can come to an understanding. Richard's firm has several major cases pending in your court. Are you attempting to negotiate with a federal judge, Mrs. Blackwell? My voice was mild, but they both paled. Because that would be highly inappropriate, wouldn't it? I didn't mean, Margaret stammered. No, I said softly. You never mean it, do you? You never mean to be cruel to service staff, or to judge people based on their perceived status, or to teach your daughter that worth is measured by bank accounts. Catherine sank into a leather chair, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't help, but I am truly sorry. Actually, I said, sitting across from her, it does help, but only if it's the start of real change, not just damage control. Margaret remained standing, her hands clasped tightly. What do you want from us? Want? I raised an eyebrow. I have everything I could want, a fulfilling career, a wonderful son, and the satisfaction of earning my success. The question is, what do you want for your daughter? Catherine looked up, mascara smudged. What do you mean? Do you want her to keep believing worth comes from designer labels and social connections? Or do you want her to understand what real strength looks like? I don't understand, Margaret began, but Catherine cut her off. You want me to work for it, she said slowly. Like you did. Like James does. I nodded, seeing a flicker of genuine insight. My first job was cleaning courtrooms at night. Know what I learned? The person emptying your trash at 2 a.m. might be studying for the bar exam. Character isn't inherited with trust funds. It's built through respecting everyone's dignity. What can I do? Catherine asked, her voice raw with desperation to learn. The Legal Aid Society needs volunteers, I said. The Courthouse Daycare Center needs reading tutors for kids whose parents can't afford childcare during trials. Margaret gasped. Catherine can't possibly. I'll do it, Catherine said, standing, her spine straightening. Both programs. And I'd like to apologize to Maria and the other staff I've been horrible to. Catherine, her mother, protested. No, Mother, she said firmly. Judge Martinez is right. I've been awful. And if I want to deserve someone like James, I need to become someone worthy of respect. As we returned to the reception, I watched Catherine walk straight to Maria and ask for a moment of her time. The apology wasn't perfect. Years of entitlement don't vanish in one night, but it was a start. James appeared at my elbow. You're giving her a chance. I'm giving her an opportunity, I corrected. Whether it becomes a chance depends on her. 3 months later, I was in my chambers when Catherine visited, looking different, no designer labels, just a simple blazer and calloused hands from actual work. She placed a folder on my desk, filled with thank you letters from kids at the Courthouse Daycare Center, 2,250 words.